welcome to this webinar this afternoon. It's entitled Pitching for Success, and it's part of a programme which is here for the SMEs of Watford who are in the borough of Watford, and it's part of Brandywin's Fit to Bid programme. And the whole idea is that by attending today, by attending other events like the Meet the Buyer event tomorrow, and by looking at the other webinars we have, you will be able to pitch much more successfully the business that you want to win. So a little bit about me. You don't need to know very much, but many moons ago, I was a corporate director. I was working at director level across Europe. And I think the way I'm made, I'm always wondering about what's the point? And you can ask it 100 different ways. Where are we going with this? What's we trying to achieve? And you'll hear that come through today about why are we doing what we're doing? What's the outcome that we're looking for? And I've spent a lot of time helping business owners how to think strategically about their business, not just the here and now, but where do they want to take it? What do they want to do? Who do they want to talk to? How does the business run? And when that's all sweet and that's all on song, it means that the business is a better business. It runs more smoothly and it runs more easily. I've done quite a few programs like this, and I've been a facilitator for the Peer Networks program that was delivered a while ago. And I've also been at the SME end of talking to people like Tesco. So the companies I've worked with, I've helped them to get contracts from Tesco, from Asda, from Sainsbury's, Morrisons, Safeway, Costco. The list is there. And I've also worked as an SME into the MOD. And I can tell you that they are quite a tough cookie and you need to be very robust. And some of the things I'll say today are based on the level of robustness that you need to have. So otherwise the MOD will simply crush you and take all of your profits. So it's all about how to submit a winning bid. That's the end goal really for the program. We want you to win more business from bigger companies, perhaps companies that you wouldn't normally think you're able to bid to successfully. But the whole program, including one-to-ones and things, will help you. So you've done these first two bits. You're on a well-funded program. You will have filled in the bid capability assessment questionnaire. And if you've been on a one-to-one already, people would have talked to you about that funny little square thing with, I don't know what shape those bars are, but that funny little symbol there is a diagrammatic representation of something called the business model canvas. If you've seen it, now I've told you what it is, you'll probably recognize it. If you haven't seen it, then I really urge you to have a one-to-one with a business advisor in the Watford team so that you understand what it's all about, because it's a tool we give you, a tool that you can use again and again and again, and it allows you to create a unique story for each individual customer that you bid for. So you're able to sell, to bid confidently. And tomorrow there will be a Meet the Buyer event for Watford. So you will be able to talk to these people and have a great story to tell them, and they will be there. So that's the Meet the Buyer event. So what's really left is for you to go through the program and go win it. So if we look at the Meet the Buyer event tomorrow, you know, there's kind of a hint. It's what it says on the tin. So there will be people there from the council. There's a property department, the place shaping, the infrastructure, customer services. They'll all be there, and they will have reasons for wanting to talk to the SMEs within the borough. Because like so many big businesses in the public sector, they are pretty much instructed by central government to buy locally whenever they can. So a precursor for that is that you, as the local SMEs in Watford, are able to send them a bid response which, you know, meets muster. And we'll talk about that today. There will be other people there. Berkeley Homes will be there. Watford Community Housing will be there. So they need lots of kind of repair types of things, maintenance things. Morgan Sindall will be there. HS2 projects will be there in the form of SCS Railways. the earlier will be there, and the care group will be there. So we kind of just went through a list of who are you pitching to. But if I ask the question slightly differently and say, who are you pitching to? Because the who is not a company name. The who is the representative of that company. And it's a person, and they have problems, and they have goals, and they will have their KPIs that their organization gives them. There will be things that help them to be successful in their job, and they are absolutely a person that you are talking to initially through your tender response or another mechanism, but it's a person. And again, if we consider who is that person in the bigger organizations that you send your tender response to, it's very likely a person in procurement. And if we stop and think again for a moment, what does that person who is about to open your tender know about you and your company before they've opened your tender response? Because the answer is probably zilch, nothing. So it's really important that when you talk to them, you remember and you know what all of your good things are. And when you hit a nerve with them, what you're aiming for is something that's become known in my patch, Hillingdon, as the Charlie squeak. And it goes something like this. Oh, the eyebrows are raised, eyes open like saucer, and you may or may not hear some kind of noise come from me. But it's massively positive. When you get that kind of reaction from your person, your audience, you have them engaged. So that person in procurement, tell them how good you are, tell them how much you will help them, write it in their language. Because if you do, what will happen? The responses come back. No, a bit like jobs. If you've ever been hiring somebody, you know what happens. You get a pile of CVs and you go, no, no, maybe, no, no, maybe. And the job of the tender response is to get on the maybe pile. Because once you've got on the maybe pile, they will probably want to talk to you, perhaps on the phone, perhaps by email, and that's less helpful, or perhaps on a face to face conversation. So think of it from their perspective. They're doing you a favor. They are inviting you to tell them more about how you can help them, how you do things, how you work, how smooth your operation is, and what a wonderful company you would be to do business with. So reward them. And again, you're pitching to them. Why? What do you want to get from this pitch now? What would success look like for you? Are you expecting the order? Is it just get a few questions done? Thank you very much. I'll get the order. We'll start work. Or is it just that you want to say thank you, yes, and maybe there's a deeper discussion to have prior to signing things off? Maybe there are technical details where somebody needs to do a site survey, or your techie guy needs to talk to their techie guy. But whatever it is you want from your pitch, be very clear in your own mind and structure it that way. And remember, it is a person you are pitching to. And it's not just anybody, it is the procurement person at the council, at Veolia, wherever it may. Or perhaps it's not the procurement person, perhaps you've gone beyond that stage and it's the person who you might actually be doing the work for. Yeah, if you want to do if the tender was about care homes, you might be talking to the care manager for the area. So understand who your person is that you're talking to and go well prepared. Because funny little thing there in yellow, that emoji, that's a Charlie squeak. The more often you can get that, the more often you are likely to be on a winning streak. So what's a winning pitch? Well, there's lots of them, and they're used in different places. A flyer, a well put together flyer, you print thousands of them, easy to distribute, easy for someone to keep, maybe at a trade show or something like that. Um, but they tend to be very generic because, by definition, you probably don't know who's going to get it before you give it to them, and it's easy for them to throw away. But for something like a trade show, when it's done well, it will be memorable. It will jog their mind about the person they spoke to on the trade show stand. It'll have your phone number on it, and they'll be able to contact you, or it'll have your email address. So social media is a modern version of a flyer. You can write things down, you can put it in front of people, perhaps less control over who sees it. And once you've written it, if you wanted to, you could recycle it in 3 months' time. And you've got national coverage now. You're not limited to wherever you're standing handing out flyers. Typically, it's read on a phone these days, so it needs to look good on a phone. And of course, it's gone tomorrow. They're looking at somebody else's social media tomorrow. But it's a good reinforcement tool. Another pitch is a webinar where you might want to convey something to a wider audience, but a much smaller hand-selected audience, somewhat like today. And typically the audience has volunteered to be there. They have chosen to attend your webinar. So that's good because hopefully they'll like what you say and hopefully they'll go away happy. So the only downsides is if you haven't done one before, it can take a lot of organizing. There is a cost element in time of the presentation that's put together and the thought that goes into it. But again, the concept is more generic. And as you know, we give you lots of webinars, we record them, you can go back and see them again. But the Fit to Bid program has a lot of webinars in it to convey lots of individual pieces of information for you. And the bottom one, the one we're going to focus on today, is face-to-face. Typically 1-to-1, it can be 1-to-2, it can be 2-to-2, but basically it's a very single-minded conversation. Both sides are there to hear from the other side. And one thing's for certain, if you do badly, a bad, poorly thought through pitch will disappoint the people you are there to give it to. If they think you haven't prepared properly, they'll think that you don't value their business, and it'll be thank you, and the business will go to someone else. So definitely be prepared. So let's look at what is a good pitch. Well, we've said top line there, it's your story. It's one they want to hear. It's not about you, it's about them. What can you do for them? What is it that you routinely do that makes them happy? And it's the little things. If you have people who wear corporate sweatshirts or whatever, corporate workwear with the name of the company embroidered on it, then that should be mentioned in your tender. Our people are always smartly dressed with a corporate polo shirt on so that they can be instantly recognized. Oh, a Charlie Squeak. And you might think, well, we just give out corporate polos, don't we? And everybody wears them. But it's something that you do that's good. And if you have a list of good things that you do, then you can use those in your good pitch. But you have to know what the person wants to hear. And, I often think back to a time when a rather hapless double glazing salesman knocked on my door, knew nothing about me, knew nothing about my house, and didn't even bother to look at my windows. Because if he did, he would have seen they'd been replaced recently. He might not be able to tell whether they were a year old or 2 years old. But I told him, I'm terribly sorry, sir, it doesn't matter. Your windows may be lovely, but I've only just replaced mine. And yet he continued to say, oh, but I can drop my price. And, I almost had to be rude to the poor chap and say, look, thank you. I'm sure you have a lovely product, but I will not buy from you. I will not. I've got new windows. So know your audience, know what they want. Because as a company, you will have things that you do well. And if you've been on my one-to-ones or one-to-ones with any of the other guys, they will have spoken to you about this thing called a value proposition. And what that is everything you do well. You turn up on time, your vans are logoed, you wear corporate workwear, you, you know, all the things that you routinely do well, you should explain why it's a benefit to them. Because actually, they're not terribly interested in the fact that, I don't know, and apologies to any accountants out there, but you know, if they say what you do and you say, I'm an accountant, it's not an exciting answer, is it? But if the same person gave an answer that said, I make jolly sure that you had sufficient cash flow to keep your business sustainable, and I keep you out of jail, and I make sure that all your tax bills are paid on time to the right department. That's the difference between telling them what they want to hear and telling them what you do. Telling them what you do is all about you and has nothing whatsoever to do with your audience. And the more that you can tell them, the more things you can tell them about your strengths, then strength, that's something they can check up on. We've been around for 25 years. Well, they can go to company's house and find out. But the more facts, the more strengths that you tell them about, we're certified to ISO 9001. They can check that. And when they come back with a tick in the box, they'll think, well, hey, well, this is good. This person is telling us the truth. But make sure that you jolly well research it, because believe you me, I was researching this last night when I got home from where I've been during the day, because I wanted this to run smoothly and be slick. So I hope it works. So, exercise number one. What I want to do is give you a few minutes and I want you to write down what it is your business does. But try and explain that. So, you know, if you're an IT company, don't say, we have lots of great servers. Answer the so what question. We have great servers that mean. And also, if you can think of what a good colleague of mine calls an eyeball stopping headline, one that is so wow, it makes people stop and actually look at you slightly cockeyed and say, are you sure? That's a hell of a claim to make. And then describe a customer that is either your ideal customer or one that you'd love to do business with. And the last thing in the exercise, come up with a sentence that says why your business has so much value to offer. So I'll start the timer now and I'll stop in a couple of minutes. And if any of you would like to put your answers into the chat, then that's great, because I can refer to them and to what excites you. So how are we doing? Have you written down what you do, why it's so brilliant? Have you got a headline yet? Because later on in the presentation, I'll take you through one of the things that I was responding to for a major supplier, the public. And you'll see what I mean when I say an eyeball popping headline. Thank you. I've seen one go in the chat, so thank you to Burju. I'll mention that later. And that's a really good start. Thank you. So, okay, let's move on. So, you know who your target is, don't you? You know what their job is. So thanks, Ruben. You've told me that you support your customers by offering building regulations compliance services. And if you'll pardon me for saying so, that's very corporate and that's very typical. But I like the next one that's come in that says, we secure your data and keep you working, making sure you don't lose money. So that's much better, because now I'm understanding that this person, Hasnain, is going to be somebody who's going to stop me losing money and keep my data secure and keep my business working. So that's good. Well done. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Looking at what makes what makes them smile. Well, first of all, we've got to narrow it down to the one person. Is it the procurement person that you're speaking to again that knows very little about what you do? Because again, if we stop and think, which I try to do a lot before I take action, a procurement person will need a different story. What you do remains the same. So you're supporting customers by offering building regulations, compliance services. But I'm in procurement. I've read it twice and I'm still not sure what it means, actually. So if I was somebody who needed compliance and you'd got through the first stage of the tender, then I'd certainly be hoping for more information. So I've just heard now from Oliver that you're a family-run business. Okay, that's good. You've got 50 years of experience. That's good. But it's not the eyeball popping headline yet. Now you're getting closer at the bottom where you said our up to 90% carbon efficient alternative to diesel is a game changer. But you haven't told me why. Is it reduced emissions? Is it the fact that it's almost as cheap as diesel? So if it is as cheap as diesel and it's carbon efficient, then you're on your way to an eyeball popping headline. So think about what they get paid for. They might get paid for buying cheapest. Some people think that that's the way the council still purchase. But the council will tell you that they are actually looking for value. So if you have value, then explain it. So if we're talking about the diesel, that's or the diesel alternative, what we can say is your servicing costs remain the same. Your engine life remains the same. Everything about your fleet remains the same, except for the fact that you are carbon zero or whatever it might be. And forgive me, I've made up some of those statements as I was talking, but those are the sort of things that I think would appeal to me if I was a fleet manager. Can my fleet, especially if it's further into London, beyond Watford, closer to London, people are very concerned about ULEZ. And if you can say that you can reduce emissions, if you can reduce ULEZ charges, I don't know if any of those are sufficiently linked up to actually happen. But that's the sort of thing that would get a fleet manager quite excited. And who's their boss? Who pays their bills? What does their boss care about? I spoke earlier about care, running care homes. Their boss could be the chairman of the council. And they're worried about voters. They're worried about passing vulnerable people to an organization they don't yet know very much about. So you need to tell them. You need to tell them that you turn up on time. You need to tell them that all your people wear corporate uniform. You need to tell them that your people wear name badges. You need to tell them that your people turn up on time. And these may sound like the really nitty gritty, well, surely everyone does that. Maybe. But in this one-to-one, you are being very politely interrogated. You are being asked to share how fantastic you are and how brilliant you are. And if you sort of say, well, we do the normal stuff, we look after everything, it doesn't have the same ring to it. So remember all the little things that you do that are good, because that's why you do it, isn't it? Because it's a good thing to do. Make sure that you can eloquently describe them at the right time in the language that would excite the person who's listening. Is your culture like their culture? Do you have policies? Because I can bet your life the bigger companies do. So if you have policy statements that say, we have a GDPR policy, we have lone worker policies, whatever it might be, you have them in advance. And by the way, they're normally part of the one-to-one process that we take owners through. We can give you templates for that. But it's what would make a difference to them? What would make them happy? Because if you can turn them from sitting there with a polite smile on their face to like, wow, if they think you understand them and their business possibly better than they do. There was somebody who was working to provide telephone systems for care homes. And when he said, yeah, we do voice over IP, so what? Most people kind of half maybe understand what voice over IP is. But when he then explained, and this is a technical solution that allows you to do so many things, for all the people who come in new to your care home, we can transport the number. So if people don't know that, dear old Dolly has come into the care home now, they ring her old home number and it rings next to her bed. Oh, well, that's good, isn't it? I didn't know that was possible, says the procurement person. Wow. If that person needs to talk to someone else within the care home, they can just dial extension number. Yeah, good. Yeah, kind of expect that. Yeah, but good. So everything that you do, every benefit that your business offers, you need to know it off pat. So value proposition. The funny thing is, when you talk about your value, you rarely talk about your product. And I'm not going to go into this in fullness today, but you can see that it's in three areas. You've got the green area, desirability, and that's what I've been kind of harping on about today. Customer segments, they need to be as small as possible, one company and an audience of one. Customer relationships, that's how you stay in touch with people afterwards. And the channel is how you deliver your message. Over here, you check that you can honor your promise, and over here, you deliver. And if you do this blue part here, you're effectively asking yourself, do I know how I will deliver what I have promised to deliver in the tender? Because the funny thing is, when you do, you're confident. You know exactly how you're going to deliver it. So it's about everything you do. It tells them about your strengths. It shows you to be so much better than the opposition. And you know what? If the opposition do pretty much what you do, but they don't mention half of it, you will come out on top because your audience of one, the person you're talking to, understands you because you put the effort in, especially if it's a big tender. And, I said about rehearsing it because, you only get one chance. And if you mess up, then they politely show you the door and move on to the next person. So another challenge, an exercise. Why should a client choose you? And you can be very specific if you want to choose a particular type of client. So somebody's just put into the chat there about customs clearance and so on. So it's very obvious this person is likely to be dealing with somebody who is an importer. So yeah, you get them customs clearance. But is that enough for them to choose you? Think of the reasons, and it doesn't have to be one. Think of reasons why did people choose you? If you've had people praise you and say, "Oh, thank you so much for the way that you up," think about them. What did they praise you for? What was it they really liked? Yeah, I'm not saying that you should write a statement on quality, but what are you committed to? What's important to you? What is it that you think your customers like? And also, as part of this exercise, I'd like to get you to ask yourself in a fairly brutal sort of way, how do you maintain client relationships after you've done the deal? Because again, in this tender situation that we are hypothetically responding to, most people forget about the procurement person once they've won the deal. They won the deal, champagne comes out, Oh, fabulous. We won the deal. Wow, we beat the opposition. But let me paint a little picture for you. If you go back to the person that gave you the tender, gave you the job, and said, thank you very much. We loved your tender. We want you to work for us. Here's the purchase order for you to work for us. If you go back to that very same person, a sensible length of time later, a couple of weeks or a month maybe, and you pick up the phone and you say, hello, Charlie, do you remember me? You were kind enough to give us a tender for the Do you know how it's going? And I would almost bet you will have a very confused procurement person because it's not normally done. So that confused person will probably say, it must be good. I don't know what, I don't know. I've not heard anything bad. Great. You have just elevated yourself in his head. You have reminded him you are a winner and he chose you. And to the best of his knowledge, it hasn't gone wrong yet. Fantastic. Because he will be the next person to issue the next tender for exactly the same piece of work in a different area later in time. So stay in his good books. And also, let's imagine for a moment, how could that conversation go wrong? What if you were, I don't know, a construction person and you rang up all bright and cheerful? Hello, Charlie, remember us? You gave us the contract for the block of flats on blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Oh, is everything okay? No. I've had reports of muddy footprints off your building site all across the playground next to it. That's not good, is it? And you can be suitably sorry and you can be suitably surprised and you can say, gosh, thank you for that. I wasn't aware of it. I'd like to look into it and get back to you if I may. Because the chances are, if you're half as good as you think you are, those muddy footprints are nothing to do with you. That's someone else on site, or that's so you can go back and you can say, well, yeah, thanks for that. We've cleaned them up, as you probably know. And it wasn't any of our guys, but we've had a word with the prime contractor and let him know that you weren't very happy about what's going on. So I don't think you'll see it again. Oh, okay. So again, you've raised yourself in his expectations. He told you about problem, you reported back, it was or wasn't you, and you resolved it. Because if there's that little niggly thing and somehow a word has got back to procurement, I can guarantee, as a British person in a big company, he's likely to be overworked and underpaid, but he will store it up here. And when there's another tender for the similar sort of work, guess what? Well, I'm not going to give it to that Charlie fella. Do you remember what happened last time? Flipping mud everywhere. But I'm not even going to give him a chance to apply. And that's probably based on false information. So by making the initial phone call, checking everything as it should be, it either is, and you're top of the class in his head. And when you finish the phone call and you say, and can I check with you again in a month's time just to make sure things are still going well? You remain top of the class. And when the next tender is going to be issued, guess who it goes to first? Guess who's already got a head start over everybody else? So, don't know how you're getting on listening. You may have been listening to me, and I should give you a chance. So, I'll pause here for a minute or two. Anybody got any wonderful success stories, testimonials, things they were praised for they'd like to share in the chat? No? Okay, let's carry on. So, you're going to have a chat with somebody. You've got beyond a tender stage. You are pitching now, and it's all dependent on you. So, we've said before, tell them what is so fandabby-daisy brilliant for them. See how they respond. It should be positive. Having come up with this huge headline that's so fantastic, they might say, that's interesting. Tell me more. Because they don't quite believe you yet. And that's good because you've got their attention and they are now listening and they're going to suck in everything that you say. And try and anticipate questions they might ask and answer them ahead of time. So when they say, tell me more, yeah, or how are you going to do that? Or whatever their form of response is, be ready to answer it. And remember what you're trying to do. You need to respond to what they say. You're not there to tell them your story. You're there to respond to them. You are there to build trust. You are there to reassure them that the initial idea they have that they probably could, should, or would like to do business with you is a good one. And remember, you had that objective. You wanted the order, or you wanted to have another chat and whatever, steer towards it. And remember, again, they don't actually particularly care who you work for at this stage. Yes, they know who to send, they need to know who to send a purchase order for, but it's not the number one thing that they're worried about. The number one thing they're worried about is, can you meet their needs better than anyone else? And of course, there will be follow-up to that meeting. You will either ask them, thank you, I look forward to receiving the order on the post, and then we can have another meeting, or thank you, we can arrange for our tech guys to talk, whatever it might be. So, a pitch, good heavens, enjoyable and exciting. Well, it should be, because you want someone to buy from you. You want them to part with hard-earned money. You want them to trust you with their money, and they are trusting you to create something that you haven't done for them yet, unless this is repeat business. So you know, be upbeat. Don't give them room for doubt. Look good. Whatever that means for you, whatever business you're in, you can look good, you can look professional, you can be dressed appropriately, smartly, whatever it might be, because when they clap eyes on you, they'll make an instant assessment. Oh, and again, did you see my eyes? Oh, well, pleased to meet you. And if they during the greeting process you get that sort of thing, first tick in the box, they like how you look. Great, let's carry on in that positive vein. And again, said it before, but it's so, so, so important. Tell them what's relevant to them. You know, you can throw in a few other side facts if they're good and are generic, but remember, don't talk generics, talk what's relevant to them, because that's what they're buying, the benefit you give them. So that bottom line on the screen at the moment, massively, massively important. They buy benefits and you deliver your product. So you sell them the benefits and you deliver your product. Anticipate their questions. What is it they might ask about? How might they react? If you think you're a relatively small company and you're going into a big job, they'll probably ask you about, have you got enough materials? Can you fund the materials? Can you? Whatever you think they would ask about, have an answer ready. Or if you can weave it into the conversation so they don't need to ask because you're proactive and you can answer it already, then so much the better. And keep listening. Build trust. Reassure them. And again, the bottom line, yeah, it shouldn't really need to be written there. But people can tell when you're being open, honest, and truthful. You know, and the flip side of that is, pardon my French, and I hope I'm allowed to say this in a webinar, you know, there is no point bullshitting them because they will see that and you'll be thrown out. Then get to where you want to go. It's your meeting. They've invited you. They're going to listen to what you say. They will make an opinion based on what you have said. And if you tell them what's next, they'll probably go along with it. So, exercise number 3. What's out there? What opportunities can you see that might be good for your business? Because although this program is called Fit to Bid, and therefore it's got a lot to do with responding to tenders and bids, you can also do something called an EIS. an expression, EOS, no, EOI, expression of interest. I do beg your pardon. And that's like you going to somebody and saying, I think you should be interested in talking to me because, and you'll see an example of that come up later. But what can you think about that's out there? Who should be using your services? What's happening in your industry? Preferably good. Um, think about how you can capitalize on it. And if you can, again, if you like to, share it in the chat. And especially if there's something that you've seen that concerns you a little bit, tell us why. So I'll give you a minute and a half on that. And just while you're thinking about that, I've got a lovely corporate statement here, which mentions a company name that eliminates the complexities of managing a large and diverse workforce for HS2, ensuring seamless onboarding, accurate record keeping, and efficient deployment. And that, I would say, is no doubt absolutely 100% correct. But, you know, so what? What does it actually mean? Because I think it means that this company encompasses the complexities of effectively managing a large and diverse workforce so that you don't have to. We ensure seamless onboarding. We welcome your new hires. We teach them how to keep accurate records so that you can pay them correctly. And we ensure that they know where they need to be when you want them to be there. So in my mind, I've translated what was said in that last thing to make it speak volumes to the person who's there. So I hope, Berger, you didn't mind me doing that. And let's move on. I promised you a case study, and the person who was doing this is me, quite a long time ago, but it was me. So my big, bold headline. I did something like 7 months of research to find out who do I need to talk to. I find out job title, I eventually found out a name, and I found out a way of where I could physically, and I mean physically, bump into him at it's Tesco's place at Cirrus House. They've got like a great big coffee area. And when I saw him there, my heart was in my mouth. And I'm thinking, okay, Charlie, you've got one choice. You have to say this loud and clear. And I said, hi, do you know what? I've been looking forward to meeting you because I think I can save you £9 million a year. And then I stopped and I waited. My heart is pounding. Sorry, off the microphone. My heart is pounding in my chest. And he's in a coffee queue. He's there to get a cup of coffee. And this person you've never set eyes on before says, I think I can save you £9 million a year. And this was Tesco. Even for Tesco, that's a lot of money that they can be saved. So he suddenly looks around and said, what? Sorry, what did you just say to me? I think I can save you something like £9 million a year. Oh, let me buy you a coffee. Let me have a chat. So I won't go into too much detail, but we sat down, we had a coffee a bit later on, and I gave him the backup facts. Imagine he said, tell me more. How are you going to do that? Well, I said, I've done some calculations. And based on what I can find out as a person who doesn't work for Tesco, an outside person, but I think you spend something like £25 million a year to refurbish the freezers and the fridges in store. Well, based on the information I have, I can tell you that we would do it for only 14 million. Really? I've got him now. His eyes are like saucers. He's like, really? He wants to know how we can do that. And I still don't tell him. I continue telling him about the advantages of that particular system. Because when Tesco spend 25 million a year on it, They have to empty all the food out of the fridges and freezers. It's a big logistical problem for the store. They have to empty all the gas out. They have to take all the electric cables off. They have to unbolt it from the floor. They have to break it down into bits small enough to physically go through the entrance door. And then they have to reverse it and get the new ones in, and bolt them together and connect up all the gas and connect up the electricity and turn it on and hope it works. But the previous one that was in there worked fine. It just looked a bit scruffy. So this new offer was, you don't empty it, you don't have to take it away, you don't have to bring a new one in, and we do it overnight. So there's no disruption. It just looks fresh and new in the morning. Would that be of interest? Can I show you my figures? Yes, of course. I'd be very interested to see that. So I show you my numbers and I'm waiting. This is where I get to my £9 million saving. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. He told me, I'm sorry, your figures are wrong. And I was just about to start saying, "Oh well, I'm from outside Tesco's. You know, you can't expect me. I'm sorry about that, but I did the best I could." But I haven't said anything yet because I'm still in a bit of a whirl. He told me this. I think it's nearer £12 million a year that you could save me. So you can imagine at that point a hearty sigh of relief from me, and I say, "Great. Um, can I revise your figures and replay them back to you?" And yeah, of course you can. Yeah. Okay. When would be a good time for me to come back and do that? And he said, "Oh yeah, day after tomorrow." So I'm thinking, what? I've got 48 hours. But of course, I did exactly what you'd expect. I said, "Thank you. I'll be back the day after tomorrow." So objective met. The fellow I was talking to at Tesco's, he was grinning like a Cheshire cat. He was like this little person. Oh, hang on. He was like the little person on the right hand side there, that little emoji, grinning like a Cheshire cat. So, what do we want you to do? We want you to use everything in the program. We have webinars that tell you how to build, how to mechanically build a response to a tender. If you attend one-to-one sessions, we talk to you about what you need to put into your response for a potential client. We've said there's a Meet the Buyer event tomorrow, so I hope that most of you are already on there. I've given you a tease about the tools that we provide for you in the one-to-one sessions. The funny multicolored one is called Business Model Canvas, and I think that's so clever the way that's put together. And when somebody who knows how to use it takes you through it, you then know how to use it, and it's a tool that you get and you can use it again and again and again. But any audience come up with most of a very strong story. If you also think about a SWOT, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, threats, say them in any order. But if you know what your strengths are and you weave them in to your value proposition, you build trust. It helps you with the SWOT. And with the SWOT, the W for weakness, you don't talk about weaknesses, but you have an answer should you be asked. That Tesco thing I spoke to you about, when I jumped into the car, I phoned my managing director, and my first words to him are, "Roger, we have a problem." And he was like, "What do you mean? You said you were going to close it. You said you were going to win the deal. What's happened?" "Yeah, I've done that." "So what's that? Why aren't you celebrating?" And bear in mind that the guys he had working for him, there's two of them. Each one had a van. They had the special painting equipment to go in and paint stuff overnight, and lots of stuff. Yeah, imagine somebody respraying a car, but it's not a car; it's a fridge, and it's inside the supermarket. So he had about 6 teams of people ready to go. And I said, Roger, we haven't got enough paint. We haven't got enough blokes. We haven't got enough fans. We haven't got enough anything to take on Tesco's. And he said, don't worry, we'll fix it. And we did. I went back to Tesco's and I said, oh, I imagine you've probably given out contracts already to some stores in the immediate future. And I said, do you mind if we don't touch them? You know, because they've been given to a company and they're expecting to do it. And I can't imagine how disappointed they would be if you suddenly took that work back after giving it to them initially. I said, let's move on down the program, 3 months. Let's move on down the program, and if you can give us some stores that haven't yet been allocated, we'll start there, shall we? And that gave us a 3 month breather, 12 weeks, get more vans, to get more blokes, yada yada yada. And so you just have to keep thinking, how do we win? How do we win? And as part of the one-to-one session, you will be asked, what are you going to do? You've had hopefully a fantastic session. Hopefully it will be, you'll review the business model canvas and how you might use it. And hopefully you'll be invited to say, okay, come up with a draft. Design your response, your story, your value proposition based on the detailed discussion you had in the one-to-one. Come up with a draft. And at the second one-to-one, which is also part of the program, you come back and you refine it. So you have a working example. And just to let you know, in this one-to-one session, you see in the big blue box there, it's confidential. It's between you and your advisor. We're obliged, because we are funded by the council or central government through the council, we are funded and we have to be able to give the councils that we operate for sufficient information that they can trust us. So we do ask you a whole load of questions, and actually the slide here, or the action card on the slide, is a little out of date, so you'll be asked a few more things. But it's a really good thing to do, and I would urge you, if you haven't done a one-to-one, find out who, and you'll see that name come up later. Find out who you need to talk to and get in touch. We also have a YouTube channel. We have all these webinars here, an introduction to bid writing. What is it you need to know before you even start? What are the basics? How do you get into it? That's the first webinar. Improving your bid response, that's the next one. Then we talk about the tendering business model. Then we talk about the importance of the circular economy and who you should be developing key partnerships with. And then at the Meet the Buyer, you can see the products and services that Watford particularly want. So that's your action plan. How to join the program, we've done most of that already. Your contact, you can see, is Tracy. You can see her email address there. You book the one-to-one, you think about who it is you want to go for. Is it local authority? Is it major construction? Is it a large buyer like the NHS or somebody in the private or public sector? Who is it? But you go down the left-hand side. Like me, I submitted an expression of interest to Tesco and said, I think you're missing a trick. I think I can save you £9 million. And then you have your winning bid. So that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. I haven't seen any questions, but if anybody would like to type some questions in now, in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the session, oh, I can see some things have just come up. Just bear with me. I'll roll my chat down. I'll scroll it down. Oh, thank you. Very kind of you to say so. Thank you very much indeed. Lisa, if you're on air, you need to know that we are drawing to the end. So for those of you that are here today, thank you. For those of you that said you liked it, thank you even more. And unless there are any further questions, I will sit here quietly for a minute or two in case any of you think about some questions. Thanks, Oliver. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Sarah. There's one that's just gone off the top of my screen. Dennis, thank you. Oliver, thank you. This is great. So thank you very much. Watford, no, but what I will do, if anybody particularly wants to speak to me, That's my phone number there, 07785 231155. I've actually got another Meet the Bar event that I'm going to fairly soon. So um, my kind of core patch, if you like, is Hillingdon. So that's where I'll be going to meet the buyer. But I certainly wish all of you well tomorrow. And my top tip for those of you going tomorrow is try and replay what I've told you today. If you want to talk to somebody from the council because you'd like to win some business from them, tell them why they should be buying from you. Flip it. Yeah, not dear sir, dear madam, please can you give me a contract? Flip it. Ah, yes, you're the council. Did you know we can help you save money by da, 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 da. Did you know we can help your old people have a much better life in the care home because did you know we can help you with your planning and open spaces regime because we talk about how you're going to help them. Whoever the large buyer is, talk about how you can help them. Think about some big open questions. Maybe it's simple as, so what's bothering you? What would you like somebody to tender for, but you don't know how to ask? And they might, well, who knows what they'll say, but they might come up with it and you say, oh, well, that's right up my street. Or you might say, okay, that's not something we do, but you might know a man or a woman who does. But just think about be helpful to them. It's not about what you do, it's the help you can offer and therefore get paid for. So that's it. My time is up. My clock on my laptop is at 3. So Lisa, I'm going to stop sharing if I can, and which probably means I'm now full screen. So thank you everybody once again for attending. It's 3 o'clock. I need to release you and let you go to whatever you've got for the rest of your afternoon.